It's in this condition they believe that unless people are armed and the movement is armed, they will not be in a position to either defend the gains that the movement makes, and therefore they will not be in a position to even to achieve the goal that they have set out for themselves. That is the second thing. The third thing that I want to point out is that India is a vast country. It's a country of 1.2 billion people. It's diverse in many ways. Capitalism develops unevenly. There are still areas which remain feudal or semi-feudal, and there are areas which have progressed and which are where, capitalism is thriving. So you have everything available, that you want to see. It's available in that vast subcontinent. In such a situation, while it's difficult to imagine that any one party can become the hegemonic force, like Congress became because of the national movement and things like that. It's very difficult right now in 21st century to imagine that any single party can be. In this context, if you then place the Maoist movement, then you discover that they are playing an extremely important and catalytic role in Indian society today. Not just for the left movement, but for the society at large. What do I mean by that? If you look at the last 6 years' history, from 2005 to now, just last 6 years' history, there is something remarkable that happened. In 2005, for the first time, the government of India declared that it's not Kashmir, it's not Northeast, which is the biggest internal security threat for the Indian state. The Maoist movement has become the biggest internal security threat. Suddenly they were elevated to #1 position from #3. Now this overnight transformation must be put in its context and must be explained. Why? When we are talking about the Maoist movement, we are talking about the Maoist movement in the context of what has happened in the last 6 years. None of us were interested in the Maoist movement prior to 2005. They were there, they were working. Not many people were interested in knowing. It's this crisis that the state has itself contributed and created that has elevated them, and it has brought them into the limelight. Okay? So what was it in 2005 that pushed them into that position? India's Prime Minister, a very honest, intellectually honest Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, repeatedly has said, he's very honest, and he has said it in so many words again and again, that look, India's economic growth story cannot be sustained if we don't open up India's forests for mining, for mining industry. That it's become critical for India now, that without that, they will not be able to attract the kind of foreign direct investment that India requires. Why? Because everybody knows that mining is the most lucrative business in the world today. Wherever you go, the amount of money that you can make is just colossal. Just to give you two small examples. Prime Minister, the Chief Minister of a small state in Jharkhand made, the government claims, made, and he's been prosecuted for that crime, that he made in just 3 years, $1 billion. $1 billion in just 3 years. That's a phenomenal amount. No capitalist or no corporation is going to give a chief minister $1 billion unless they know that they'll be making, if not 100 times, at least 10 times that amount. They're not going to give $1 billion in charity. Obviously, it's big because they believe that they stand to make at least 10 times that amount of money. Take another example. The chief minister of the Congress ruled state who died in a helicopter crash. In 5 years of his rule, it is estimated that he must have made at least $3 billion. At least $3 billion. Again, nobody is going to give that amount of money unless the corporations believe that they're going to make 10 times that amount of money. So, opening up of the forest and displacement of people from the forest and handing over the land of the Adivasis to the mining corporations became very important for government's economic policy in the 21st century. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh has also pointed out that whereas India's growth story is linked to opening up of the forest area for the mining sector, unfortunately these areas are under the control of the Naxalites. So what do we have to do? We have to get rid of Naxalites naturally. You can't have corporations walk in if they are going to meet resistance. Is it possible for a country like India, and is it possible for any revolutionary movement in a country like India to think in terms of bringing about a social transformation peacefully by working overground and openly and come to power, and where they'll be allowed to remain in power, especially in light of the experience next door in Nepal, where we had a Maoist movement which had a protected people's war, decided to, instead of seizing power in Kathmandu, go in for a more peaceful way of closure, bringing about a closure, participated in election, emerged as the biggest, the single biggest political party in the country, and then it found that every step of the way it was obstructed by machination, primarily of India, backed by United States, because right now United States and India are like thick as thieves, right? And in South Asia, whatever India does, it has the blessing of United States. It does not mean that India is merely a cipher, no. But at times there might be a difference of opinion, as the WikiLeaks cable showed very recently, that they were very upset with India bringing about this patch-up between the Maoist and the other political parties. Now the point I'm trying to make is that if you look at the experience of Nepal next door, where they fought election, emerged as the single largest force, one would have expected that everybody was said that, well, they won the elections, let them come to power now. Let them form the government. This did not happen. At every step of the way, they were thwarted, and even now, there are moves afoot to ensure that Maoists do not in any way come to power or share of power, and even if they were to become part of the government, do not get key ministries. So at every step of the way, they are thwarted, they are obstructed. How they will manage, how will they'll overcome, that's a separate matter, because the Nepalese Maoists are not they, unlike the Communist Party of India, which also surrendered the weapons, the Maoists in Nepal haven't done it, so they are still a powerful force. So you can't just deal with them in the same way that you've dealt with other communists elsewhere. But it does have a lesson for revolutionaries elsewhere, and especially in South Asia, and especially in my country, in India, which is that, is it possible that even if they want to, even if they desire to, and they sincerely want to come out openly and work openly, will they be allowed to? Will they be allowed to organize people? Because right now, if the ban were to be lifted, given the nature of Indian left today, it would seem where the poorest of the poor, I mean the imagination, the poorest of the poor may get more attracted to the Maoists than to any other left formation if they were to come overground. But will they be allowed to? And even if they were allowed to, will they be able to carry on in the way in which they would like to expand, to other areas and things like that? These are These are questions that we have to ask ourselves, because if we push them, if we ask them, give up your arms, abjure violence, violence is bad, etc., etc., what is the alternative that we are offering them? That alternative is not at all attractive. So it leaves us with a very serious problem which we have to reflect over is there any other way in which a revolutionary transformation can come about? Given the nature of contradictions that we have, what Dipankar pointed out, and this is just the last thing that I want to say, that given that, where you still have after 63 years, 77% of your population living surviving at less than ₹20, and a miserable existence at that. Where they're working, I mean, after 150 years of working class struggle, you discover that India's workers today, in the industry today, are putting in not 8 hours, they're putting in not less than 11 to 12 hours, for which they don't even get overtime. Okay? I mean, we have gone back. The clock has been reversed. So whatever gains they had made has been wiped out, and the capital has been able to impose new sets of conditions on labor. Given that, given the nature of the state of affairs, where 43% of our children between the age of 0 to 6 suffer from malnourishment and malnutrition, and you know, after 2 years of malnutrition, you know, a child's capacity, cognitive abilities are affected, I mean, seriously impaired. Given that, I mean, that our next generation, which is actually being exposed to slow and miserable death. Given this, is it possible to think in terms of and where revolutionary transformation therefore is essential and it's needed, is it possible to think in terms of a peaceful way of this transformation? Is it, given this? Thank you very much.